Well, Bills Mafia on tonight's Air Raid Hour. We'll be breaking down, I guess, because we have to, all things Bills Chiefs. Bills 2023 season comes to another disappointing end at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. So we got another therapy session on the way. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome, ladies and gentlemen of Bills Mafia, to the Air Raid Hour post-game show presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. Another Bills 24, Chiefs 27, another classic game between these two franchises. It was, if you were not a fan and were emotionally invested in this game, it was probably fun to watch between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. But once again, for the Buffalo Bills, another playoff loss at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. Dave, there's a number of ways we can go to start the show, but we have some super chats from Justin Tyndall. So we're gonna get to those first because they mentioned Sean McDermott, they mentioned Andy Reid, they mentioned this rivalry. Do we even call it a rivalry between these two football teams over the past couple of seasons? So we're gonna read off these super chats and we're gonna discuss this to start the show today. Justin Tyndall comes in and says, Andy Reid owns Sean McDermott. 3 playoff games against the Chiefs. They have punted a total of 4 times in those games. How's it going to be any different next year? McDermott can't blame Leslie Frazier this time. He ain't bringing a Super Bowl here. Justin follows up. McDermott has had 4 years to come up with a scheme to slow down Mahomes, Reid, and nothing has changed. 5 third downs, give me a break. Chiefs lost 2 defensive starters in the first quarter. Didn't stop them. And then finally he comes in and says, how long till McDermott's scheme has run its course? That was a damning statistic that honestly I had never put together. And you went and you checked it, and it was accurate. The Kansas City Chiefs have punted 4 times in the playoffs in 3 games against Sean McDermott's defense.
Yeah, I got in a little bit early to this show tonight. I was just doing a little bit of prep, and I saw Justin's comment, and I was like, that's interesting. Justin's always very knowledgeable, but I was gonna fact check that one and just be like, whoa, that seems pretty crazy to me. But wow, it is true. The AFC Championship game from a couple years back, they punted once. In the famous 13 seconds game, they punted twice, and then in this game they only punted once. So it's pretty crazy. Now, circumstances I think were a bit different in this game than compared to the other 2, and obviously injuries I think play a big factor in that. But it is pretty wild to think about that this team has only forced 4 punts in 3 games against the Chiefs in the playoffs. And we're going to get into it tonight, obviously. But look, it's going to be an interesting conversation around how much blame do you actually put on Sean McDermott after what he got out of this defense with all the injuries this year versus this one singular moment, obviously in the biggest game of the year for the Bills, where they couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense at all.
I mean, let's get the elephant on the room right away. The Buffalo Bills aren't firing Sean McDermott.
Yep.
They're not. Terry Pagula doesn't have the stones to do it. It's the only successful coach he's ever hired. They're best buds. They have given credibility to an organization that had no credibility. Sean McDermott has a leash as long as Mike Tomlin, as long as John Harbaugh, as long as Pete Carroll, as long as Bill Belichick. He's got a leash like that despite not having the Super Bowl rings to deserve said leash. Whether you like it or not, that is a fact. Sean McDermott will not be fired this year. He probably won't be fired if this happens again next year. because as long as the Buffalo Bills are competitive, as long as they win and host a couple of playoff games every single year, the Buffalo Bills will be able to continue to sell hope. They'll be able to continue to sell tickets. And this team and Terry Pagula will keep on making their money. So Sean McDermott's not going anywhere. If the Bills were to fire Sean McDermott tomorrow, I'd be fine with it. Because to a lot of people's points, like, dude, like how many times are we gonna relive this nightmare? How many times, how many cracks to playoffs are we gonna give this guy with Josh Allen? Like, how many times are we gonna do it? I don't know. And it's super frustrating. And I get why people are mad, but as this show progresses and as the offseason progresses, we're not going to harp on Sean McDermott's job status too much because really at the end of the day, like, what's the point? It's not going to change.
Just got the extension, right? Terry's loaded, obviously, but I don't think Terry as a businessman and knowing what Sean McDermott has done for this team is gonna reach down into his pockets and shell out money to a coach that's not coaching the team. So I doubt anything happens in the next year or two. The narrative is likely going to be like the Bills had all these injuries and look what he was able to patch
Oh yeah.
for the season. And like, look, by and large, like he did do a good job patching that defense together. I did like what Sean McDermott did as a first year, not first year, but as the first time calling the plays as a head coach defensively. There's a lot of good things to take away, but this team continues to come up short in the big moments in the postseason, and that's not necessarily just. I'm not talking about the defense, but just in totality, this team is coming up short in the postseason. And I know it's really hard to win a Super Bowl, but I will say this, like, and I said this before the game too. This Chiefs team, for whatever reason, is a mental hurdle for this Bills team. In the regular season, okay, you can beat them. I get it. But like it doesn't matter if you can't beat them in the playoffs. It does not matter. If you cannot beat this team in the playoffs, a team that is going to be front and center in the playoffs every single year with as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, you're going to have to deal with this every single year. The road to getting to the Super Bowl is one way or another. You're going to have to play the Chiefs most times, right? You're going to have to play them.
And the thing too is just to get specific to this game. When I look at the reasons why we lost this football game, like I'm not even that mad at Sean McDermott. I'm really not. Because I actually do have some sympathy for all the injuries that we had to deal with. I do have some sympathy for the fact, and we'll get into the specifics of all of this when we talk about the defense later on in the show and all the specific things that maybe Sean McDermott did wrong and what he could have done differently. But at the end of the day, the Bills, I thought, had a really good offensive game plan. I think that if Trent Sherfield catches a ball, if Stephon Diggs catches a ball, the Buffalo Bills win this football game. I think the Buffalo Bills win this football game 9 times out of 10. I think if the Buffalo Bills defense was healthy, this game's not even close. Like, there's all of these things where it's just like, all right, cool. If Sean McDermott's back, whatever, because of all of these things. And it's just, it's just a word salad right now because I just feel like I'm on a loop repeating myself. But like in terms of this game, sorry, I'm not even mad at Tyler Bass. Like Trent Sherfield and Stephon Diggs, you're the reason we lost this game, plain and simple. You two people can't catch a football when it's perfectly in your hands and it's your job.
Yeah, I slept on this one. And, initially last night, I was obviously upset with Tyler Bass, but also like the Bills need to score a touchdown there, right? They kick that field goal and they make it. It's a tie game. Patrick Mahomes has 2 timeouts, a minute 47 to go. And realistically, like the Bills hadn't stopped the Chiefs all night aside from one possession. So like Tyler Bass did not have a good postseason. I'm fully aware of that. But like, again, that's like so far down the list of things that I like am concerned about right now that it's just not worth piling on Tyler Bass right now.
Yeah. Josh Allen for his career now, 65%. And again, like I said, we're just talking in circles at this point. And that's what this conversation is. Josh Allen for his career now, 65% completion percentage in 10 career playoff starts, 2,723 passing yards, 563 rushing yards, 16 receiving yards, 27 total touchdowns to just 4 interceptions in his career in the playoffs. The Bills are only 5-5 with no Super Bowl berth to show for it. Again, what the hell are we doing wasting the second best player in footballs behind Patrick Mahomes' career? Like, what are we doing?
And I think that's where, I guess, positively, that today I saw a lot more people kind of coming to the defense of Josh Allen than were kind of piling on him. There were some people still kind of trying to blame him. Obviously, the missed throw to Shakir towards the end where he got kind of bumped by Dawkins getting pushed back into him. But like, if you came away from that game thinking Josh Allen was any part of the reason really this team lost, then I don't really know what to tell you. He played spectacularly. The Bills wouldn't have even been in that game if it wasn't for that incredible throw to Shakir in the corner of the end zone. And obviously he added in with all the key rushing yards and some of those throws that were just missed, right? As far as like missed catches, the balls were placed pretty perfectly, to be honest, in both of those situations. So look, he did have the fumble that was recovered by Kincaid, right? I get that. Or it was Spencer Brown, excuse me. I think that recovered that fumble late in the game. But look, he did everything he could to get the Bills to win this game. And yes, came up short at the end in that drive where the missed throw to Shakir when he got bumped. The Bills needed to score a touchdown there. It just happened to be in that situation a backbreaker. But man, like if you watch that game and again watched it back on the all 22 or even just rewatching the game on the broadcast, thinking that he was any part of the problem or such a a minuscule part of it, then I don't know what to say, right? I just don't know what to say.
We have Mosman coming in saying Josh tried some strikes when he should have thrown the flat. He did make mistakes. That's the national media narrative today, right? For some reason, the national media wants to cling on to the last 2 plays of the game and somehow want to make like Josh Allen the story. Like if Stephon Diggs catches the football and walks into the end zone for a touchdown, that play never happens. Josh made the right read. He just got hit. Could his pocket awareness, could his pocket maneuverability have been better? Yes, it could have. But like, I'm sorry, no offense, Mosman, but like, don't feed into the national narrative. Give me a break. Like Josh Allen did not make any mistakes on that throw to Khalil Shakir. If you want to get picky, and maybe on 4th down he could have hit Kincaid, but Kincaid would have been well short of the sticks. But it might have been an easier field goal, or the Buffalo Bills could have gone for it on 4th down, sure. But you have a chance to get 7. You're taking the chance to get 7. Like that's what you're doing, and that's what Josh Allen did. And if his arm wasn't hit as he threw, that's a touchdown to Khalil Shakir. Like, so the fact that the national media harped on that is just such a joke.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing. You got to take the touchdown, right? Because you have to score a touchdown. Obviously, you'd love to come down and you'd like to leave basically no time, right? But you have to take the touchdown in that situation when you can get it with under 2 minutes. And by the way, that puts you up by, assuming Bass makes the extra point, that puts you up by 4. So it does force the Chiefs to come down and score a touchdown of their own. Now, not saying they wouldn't have done that, but it at least makes them drive the field and have to put it all the way into the end zone. So I don't have an issue whatsoever.
I don't have words for this kind of stupidity here from Worldwide Stepper. The throw to Shakir was a bad decision. Why go up 4 with more than 2? Did you just read that? Why go up 4? To go up 4. I just don't have time for that. Like, come on. Like, are you guaranteed to score a touchdown as time expires? You really want to run the clock down to 3 seconds and throw the ball into the end zone and hope and pray on the last play of the game? Holy shit, people. Give me a break. I'm sorry to not be nice about it, but like, my goodness. Justin Tyndall coming in with a super chat. He says, besides Josh, a player who had 10 career catches in Shakir and the rookie tight end, only players that showed out. Nobody on the expensive D line. That annoyed me the most. Diggs doesn't perform in the playoffs. We're going to hit on all of those things tonight too, right? Like, so what Justin just touched on, I agree with 100%. We're going to have thoughts on all of those things as the show progresses. There is a bunch of special teams comments that are coming into the comment section hot and heavy. We have a whole segment planned for special teams tonight as well to talk about special teams, but let's get things rolling tonight, Dave, with our biggest takeaway, because this is how we usually start off every show. We got a little heated to start today's show, but we always like to take one big takeaway from every single game. We like to look at the game in totality, take all of the noise, and we want to find one thing to latch onto, the one big takeaway from every single game. I think for a lot of people, they're just done with Sean McDermott, and that's their big takeaway from this football game. But how about you? What was your biggest takeaway from the game? And people in the comment section, I promise I'm going to stop yelling at people. What was your biggest takeaway from the football game?
Well, you know what I'll do? I'll kind of do a biggest takeaway for the totality of the season. So I'll cheat a little bit since we tend to kind of
It's
allow
fine. The season's
ourselves to
over,
do that.
so go for it.
I will say this. My biggest takeaway, I'll say, I'll kind of combine it with this game, is I think that
Mhm.
this Bills offensive line, and I know they kind of got a little bit pushed around in the second half in that game, but I think the fact that this Bills offensive line together played every single game, we had the same 5 starters every single
Mhm.
game this year, and we saw the emergence of Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid this year. Dalton Kincaid, the high draft pick, absolutely panned out for the Buffalo Bills. Looks like he will be a star in the making. And Khalil Shakir, a guy that we loved in the pre-draft process, showing up and being honestly a star, right, for this team. And I'm obviously he's got some eyeballs on him now from people um, across the U.S. yesterday with his performance and his performance over the last couple of weeks. But the Bills really, if you think about it, with this offensive line, with Khalil Shakir, with Stephon Diggs, with Dalton Kincaid, with James Cook, the Bills are in a really good position with, I know Gabriel Davis not under contract, I know Sherfield will gone, to really be very targeted with adding potentially one more weapon to this group, either through the draft or otherwise, likely through the draft, and really can then go back and kind of approach the off season in a multitude of ways. So I think my biggest takeaway from this game is that I was really happy in the season is that I was really happy to see what James Cook became this year. I was really happy to see that Dalton Kincaid exceeded expectations in my mind as a rookie, and that this offensive line really came together, a unit that we had been constantly talking about, it seems like every offseason, as a unit that needed to improve. And I think it'll be really nice this offseason that we won't necessarily have to talk about the offensive line as a position group that needs attention. And then obviously the other biggest takeaway for me, flip side of the ball, the defensive injuries, I think, just came down to they were just too much to overcome, I think, in this one, right? You had obviously less than 100% Rasul Douglas out there. You had at varying times in this game, Dodson got banged up at one point, right? And there's age now on this defense as well in the back end with Hyde and Poyer. So if it is their last run together, which it sounds like it very well could be, my hat's off to them. But there needs to be an injection, I think, of youth in that secondary, and so or specifically at the safety position. But I just think the injuries, too much to overcome in this one. Hope Matt Milano's back and ready to go next year. He should be, and that the Bills come back and have a little bit better injury luck next year.
Couple of big takeaways from some people. Miss Mistake comes in, says Kincaid is a gem, 100%. Like, that guy's gonna be awesome for a long time here. Axon Jackson 222 comes in and says, biggest takeaway: football gods are cruel. 13-second game, Hamlin dying on the field, wide right 2.0. What sort of new hell will rain down on Buffalo next year? Did we not sacrifice enough to the pit? Did the pit not get enough flesh? Like, I don't understand what the issue was, but it's funny. I was driving home today and I'm like, I'm just going to listen to Phoenix Sports Radio today because I live in Phoenix. I'm like, I'm going to listen to Phoenix Sports Radio today because I just don't want to listen. I just don't want any Bills talk today. I just want to be away from it. And what are they talking about? They were comparing whether you have it tougher as a Suns fan or a Bills fan. Like, that was the segment on the radio station. And all of them agreed that the Bills fans have it harder than Suns fans. So a resounding W for Bills fans on Monday on Phoenix Sports Radio, I guess. Bills Are Electric comes in and says, my biggest takeaway, Josh Allen was really a hardcore stud in this game. Absolute stud. Yeah. I mean, the guy shows up in the playoffs like it's nobody's business, but yet he somehow cannot win these games because one of the things that I have in my notes here Not one of our single biggest takeaways, but one of the things that I tweeted last night, and I just feel this statement in my core. So many people let down Josh Allen last night. So many people. Sean McDermott let down Josh Allen last night. Trent Sherfield let down Josh Allen last night. Stephon Diggs let down Josh Allen last night. James Cook, I guess, let down Josh Allen last night, but Josh Allen ended up scoring a touchdown on that James Cook drop drive. AJ Klein let down Sean McDermott last night. Rasul Douglas not being able to tackle Patrick Mahomes let down Josh Allen last night. Tyler Bass not being able to tie the game let down Josh. Like so many people let down Josh Allen last night. Like so many people. Just the list goes on of all the people that let down that stud like last night. It's just it's really unbelievable, and it's just you don't ever want to sound like you're favoring Josh Allen more than the team, right? Like you don't ever want to be that guy who puts him on this like pedestal and you don't like critically analyze him, but you look at this game and you're just like, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. This man goes on a pedestal and everyone else is beneath him. Like it's just that's how it is. Khalil Shakir, you can join Josh Allen on the pedestal. Like, you belong there. Dalton Kincaid, you belong there. Offensive line, you belong there. Everyone else, you can stay at the bottom. My biggest takeaway, despite the fact that you guys have done a really good job of getting me emotional and angry to start the show today. So thank you for that. I thought I was dead inside, so now I feel something. I am surprisingly at peace with this loss. I was having this conversation with you after the show concluded yesterday when we were talking about just how we felt heading into this game. And I really did think the season was over after the Broncos. Like everyone loves to make fun of Nate Geary for his tweet that went viral and is now on coffee mugs about the Bills season being over. I had a very similar tweet after the Broncos game. Like the season's done. Like it wasn't to the extent that Nate's was, but like I had a tweet. I was done. I'm like on the 2024 draft prep. Like this season was over for me after the Broncos game emotionally. And I just, despite the winning streak, I never really reset my expectations. Last year on this show, like you were here. People in the comment section were here. I was out for blood last year, man. Like I was enraged. I was putting Sean McDermott on the hot seat. I was saying that Ken Dorsey should not be retained. I was calling for Leslie Frazier to be fired. I wanted the Buffalo Bills to clean house on the coordinators, except for Sean Smiley, because ironically, he had the number one special teams unit in the league last year, and now it's one of the worst. We'll talk about that again later, but I was calling for them to fire their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, to bring in some new blood, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This year, whatever, man. Like, fire McDermott, okay. It's not going to happen. Retain Joe Brady, I'm actually fine with it, and we'll have that conversation later. But there should be a real search. Like, it shouldn't just be Edgar Bennett and T. Martin so we can check some boxes before rubber stamping something. Like, it should be a real search. McD as the defensive play caller again next year, okay. He wants to give it to Bobby Babich or Holcomb, okay. Right. The only thing I will lose my mind about is if he gives it to Eric Washington, I will lose it. But like I said, and the Chiefs fans will laugh at me, but we beat this Chiefs teams 9 times out of 10. I truly believe it. The injuries piled up. We finally didn't have an answer for all of these injuries. Dudes were dropping balls like crazy. The offensive game plan was fine. We catch some balls. We have a healthy defense. You know, we win this game 9 times out of 10. Like I just don't have the strength or the energy to be as enraged as I was last year. I don't.
No, and I think I really like this comment from RC3 here. This is more of a disappointment loss than a heartbreak. I mean, yeah, if you start to think about it, like this wasn't like a heartbreaker in the sense that like it wasn't like Tyler Bass's kick was to win the game, right? It wasn't even like Tyler Bass's kick was to give the Bills a lead, right? So I think a lot of people are kind of like focusing in on that, and like that's been obviously shown a ton today on like highlight reels and things like that. But like the reality is like we said for Josh Allen, right? If Patrick Mahomes scores on that touchdown, that crazy play Kelsey to Tony, and Tony's not offsides, people are like, oh, the game's over. No, like Josh Allen still had time to go back down and score in that game,
Mhm.
just like Patrick Mahomes was going to have time to go back down and score in this game. So I do agree with RC3's comment
Mhm.
there. It is definitely more disappointing than heartbreaking because you have that stud type of performance for Josh Allen and you have guys around
Mhm.
him letting him down. It's disappointing. There's not like a singular moment that really stands out as like a truly Billsy way to lose like we've
Yeah.
seen in the past. Okay, Bass missed the
Wide
field goal,
right.
but
That was
there
just to
was
tie
time
the
left
game.
on.
Do people
Yeah,
realize that was just to tie the game? It wasn't to win it, and like
yeah.
time wasn't expiring. Like some people are making way more big of a deal about that. Like that to me, he missed that kick. Him missing that kick was not as heartbreaking as Stephon Diggs dropping that touchdown. Like, why is Tyler Bass's miss getting more attention than Stephon Diggs's drop? I don't get it. One would have won us the game. The other would have tied the game and given Patrick Mahomes
Minute
a
47 and 2
minute
timeouts.
47 and 2 timeouts. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
to get a
In
field
a
goal.
tie game to get a field goal,
Yeah,
that's game over.
yeah.
Touchdown to Khalil Shakir, touchdown to Stephon Diggs. You need to score a touchdown. Maybe that's a different story, right? But 3, no, gosh. Tyler Bass nails that field goal. The Buffalo Bills are going home on a Harrison Butker field goal about 5 minutes later. Like it's
Mhm.
I don't get some of the vitriol over the Tyler Bass miss. Other than the fact that like he's been ridiculously bad in the playoffs. He's had a roller coaster of a season and he's uncuttable. And again, we'll get to all that when we get to special teams.
Mhm.
Before we do that, a quick word here from the guys over at the Cover One Buffalo podcast.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right, let's talk a little bit now here about the Buffalo Bills offense, and then we'll get to the defense as well, and we will get to the special teams. But first, let's start with what, in my opinion, was the real positive of this football game, and that was obviously Josh Allen. We mentioned at the top of the show, a ton of people let Josh Allen down in this game. Really, to me, I had 3 issues with this offense. Trent Sherfield's first drop, Trent Sherfield's second drop, and Stephon Diggs's drop. Those are really the only 3 issues I had with this offense all day. To me, again, Stephon Diggs and Trent Sherfield lost us this football game.
Yeah. And I
Certain
think
and sorry, you can keep
no,
going here,
go ahead. Go ahead.
like, there's a certain radio station that decided to make the narrative this morning for some whatever reason. I don't know. They wanted to question Joe Brady's game plan and think that Joe Brady was somehow the problem with why the Buffalo Bills lost this game, right? The Bills offense was doing everything right. I mean, anyone with a brain cell who watched the Kansas City Chiefs this year knew how the Buffalo Bills and how other teams should attack them. Run first, take the underneath stuff versus the too high, and then calculate some shots down the field. Run the ball first. Check. We did that pretty well. Take the underneath stuff. Check. We did that pretty darn well too. Connect on the calculated deep shots. Oof, that was the abysmal failure. Trent Sherfield times 2. Stephon Diggs. I mean, the Chiefs' strategy was similar. They pounded us all night on the ground and they took calculated shots. They just hit all of their calculated shots after not hitting them seemingly all year long. The Buffalo Bills had 37 minutes time of possession compared to the 23 of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills had 77 plays on offense compared to the 50 of the Kansas City Chiefs. If Diggs and Sherfield catch those perfect dimes put right into their hands, the Buffalo Bills win this football game. McD's lousy defense doesn't matter. Josh Allen's last 2 plays don't exist. The fake punt doesn't matter. Tyler Bass's miss doesn't happen. None of it matters if Stephon Diggs and Trent Sherfield did their jobs and catch the football.
Yeah, and I said early in the game on the Trent Sherfield, the Trent Sherfield drop. I mean, he did have the dude was kind of holding his arm down on that one, and obviously then the one later in the game where he had to lay out. Like, you're missing Gabe Davis on those two plays, obviously, right? And you can say what you want about Gabe Davis and the season he's had, but the size of Gabe Davis, his ability to kind of get his hands up and above the defender, it could have been the difference on that play. But Trent Sherfield's still an NFL wide receiver. He's still got to be able to make that play. You see a guy like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's had the drops issues all year, just make an absolutely incredible catch early in the game over Taron Johnson. So, again, those catches need to be made. I thought the offense was humming early, pounding the rock, displacing the Chiefs' defensive line. The Bills were really running it at will early. Now, in the two possessions where they fake punted and then had to actually punt, the Chiefs kind of made some nice adjustments there, and James Cook was stymied a bit, and that's why his average, I mean, had a couple big negative runs there on those two drives, which kind of really hurt his overall average if you look at it, and that kind of got the Bills a little bit in trouble as well late in the game. And then Roy says relying on Sherfield was their first mistake, but they didn't have anyone else to put on the boundary. Like, who else are you going to put out there is the problem.
Yeah.
Shakir's in the slot, you have Diggs on one side, and who are you going to put out there without Gabe? Like, there's no one else to put out there. So he's got to be the guy you put out there. And look, you don't want him to be the guy that you're taking these shots to or having to rely on. But, like, in a game where maybe they're taking away Stephon Diggs on a play or Shakir's not open on it, like, he's out there. He's going to have to try to make something of a few opportunities that he has. And it didn't happen, right? So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, Josh put the ball where he needed to put it, I think, on all three of those throws, both of the Sherfield drops, I'll say, and the Diggs drop.
Yeah, I mean, to people's points, and our show next week is literally going to be our annual year after the airing of grievances, which is today's show, is always our roster deconstruction show. So, like, next week, we're going to go through the entire roster, position group by position group. We're going to talk about who's under contract, who's not under contract, who are cap casualty considerations, who are guys who the Buffalo Bills are probably going to cut. Like, what is the skeleton of our team going to look like heading into free agency, heading into the draft, etc. So we're going to be talking about all that next week, but a quick little preview here. I need to get this off my chest. Like, and just because, Joe Marino was talking about it on his podcast this morning, Brandon Beane mentioned it a couple of years ago. Like, your biggest weaknesses are always shown in the elimination games, in the games where you were eliminated. And by a mile, the Buffalo Bills' inability to put out a quality receiving core outside of Stephon Diggs and Khalil Shakir this year was a huge issue. And I understand that Gabriel Davis was hurt. I do, but the Buffalo Bills need a complete overhaul at the wide receiver position. I mean, I watched Green Bay, and I know Green Bay lost, but I kind of was vibing with that whole no alpha, no selfishness. One week it's this guy, the next week it's that guy type of wide receiving core with a bunch of young and hungry guys. And I don't think it's possible to get rid of Stephon Diggs in that contract, even though a lot of people think it's time for these two sides to divorce. Financially, I just don't think it's feasible. But the Buffalo Bills need to find two legitimate complements to Stephon Diggs and Khalil Shakir, because it needs to be better than Gabriel Davis, Trent Sherfield, and Deontay Hardy, because Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy each made one play this year. It just so happens that the one play each of those two guys made this year was in the same game, and it won us the AFC East. Like, they literally did nothing for 17 weeks. Nothing. And then they had one good game, and then they did nothing in the playoffs. Like, in fact, they cost us a playoff game. Trent Sherfield did, at least. So, I mean, Brandon Beane, dude, I don't care who's rushing the passer next year. I care about who's catching passes from Josh Allen. Score more points. Go out there. We need a bona fide free agent or a high draft pick or both added to this receiving core. We do. Like, no more cost cutting here. You need to go out and get some natural separators.
Yeah, and I mean, getting a little ahead of ourselves, but you start to look at the depth of the wide receiver class in this upcoming draft, there could be a really nice talent to be had at pick. What are they, 29? Or
28.
28? Yeah.
Mhm.
Someone obviously should be available in that range. But anyway, this offense, yeah, the time of possession you mentioned, they had 30 plus more plays than the Chiefs. Time of possession over 37 minutes. They didn't have any turnovers. Josh Allen really, going into the playoffs, it was like, can he limit the turnovers? No turnovers in either game in the playoffs, right? Bills ran for 182 yards. They were 50% on third down against a really good defense in the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 for 3 on fourth downs. And so then you start to dig in a little deeper. 4.7 yards of play. It's average. 4.8 yards of pass. That's where you start to talk about, the lack of a downfield threat, right? And everything being at or around the line of scrimmage or nearby, right? 4.8 yards per pass is pretty low for when you have a guy like Josh Allen. Now, they ended up being right there, 24 points with a chance at the end to even 30
But
points. So
imagine what that would have been if Trent Sherfield would have caught 2 balls and Stephon Diggs would have caught that ball. His 184 yards would have been 350 and 3 tutties.
and
it would have been a rout.
that's what
It would have been a
happens.
rout.
And that's what happens in these games, right? They're so close against tough opponents in the playoffs. Those 1 or 2 plays, are the difference oftentimes. And the Bills didn't have them, and the Chiefs did in this game, and that's why it was a 3-point loss ultimately for the Bills. Oh, by the way, I did pick the correct score. We both did, but just the wrong team.
Wrong team. Running backs were fine. Offensive line was great. No issues there. The last thing I have for offense is I'm literally gonna lose my mind on the next person that tries to compare Josh Allen to Phillip Rivers, because it's just such an insult. Like that Josh Allen throw to Khalil Shakir for that touchdown, 2, 3, 4 guys on the planet Earth could do it. Phillip Rivers never could. Josh Allen has as many playoff wins, as many AFC Championship game appearances, and 4 more 40 touchdown seasons than Phillip Rivers did. And Phillip Rivers retired at the age of 38. Josh Allen is 27 years old. Josh Allen has literally already accomplished anything of value that Phillip Rivers has accomplished in the National Football League other than conceiving children. Like literally, that is the only thing Josh Allen needs to catch up on. I wouldn't recommend it, Josh. Enjoy your free time. Do not have as many kids as Phillip Rivers did. That is such a lame, cheesy, cheap national narrative. That one just needs to be flushed down the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing the players, right, then obviously the narrative needs to go down the toilet. I think
Even the legacy, though, like literally Josh Allen has accomplished as much in the playoffs as Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers never had a 40 touchdown season. Josh is 4.
Yeah. I think where people are headed with it is they don't want to see the waste of talent, right? I mean, don't compare him to Phillip Rivers, fine, but you don't want Josh Allen to be this guy that's like a Dan Marino or a Charles Barkley, right, of their sports, or a Jim Kelly even, right? And
that's less more insulting. Talent. That's less insulting, though.
Yeah. Yes, but you don't want to be in that. You don't want to be that guy that's one of the greatest of all time and never won a championship, right? That's ultimately how conversations take place once you're done with the game. What did you do in the postseason? Did you win championships? This is why even a guy who was generally an average quarterback season to season, when it came playoff time, guess what? Eli Manning got it done in the playoffs. He won 2 Super Bowls. And so that's what the conversation is. Fair or not, it's the ultimate team game, as Louis Riddick pointed out on Twitter today. And it's really hard for us to kind of for a lot of us, right, to just want to put praise or blame on one person on a team game where it's 53 guys, right, or 48 on game day. It's just really hard, right? And so the counter argument to that is the greats find a way one way or another, and Josh Allen is great. And one of these years, they have to find a way, right? They have to.
All right, shifting our focus now from the Buffalo Bills offense to the Buffalo Bills defense. Well, let's start with this talking point because there was a number of talking points from this game. AJ Klein was bad, and we all saw it. AJ Klein was picked apart. We talked about it in the pregame show. We're like, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs' offense isn't good, but we can see them scoring points if they just pick on AJ Klein all game, and they picked on AJ Klein all game. AJ Klein was bad. Rasul Douglas was clearly not healthy. I mean, that Patrick Mahomes scramble and Rasul Douglas's, I don't want to say effort because I think he just really couldn't contort his body to make that tackle or to run with Patrick Mahomes on that ankle, was clearly not ready to play. Sean McDermott, you're the defensive coordinator. Is it on him to make the switch to Kyrie Elam and Dorian Williams in the game, which he did not do? Is it on him to have started Kyrie Elam and Dorian Williams, even though that would have been an unpopular maybe decision? What are your thoughts on AJ Klein and Rasul Douglas being out there when a healthy Kyrie Elam and a healthy Dorian Williams were available?
It is on McDermott. I think that probably what happened is I think that Douglas ended up being far more hobbled than maybe he even thought he'd be. Now that's on him to be prepared for that, right?
But you got to see that in practice, right?
Yes,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
you have to be prepared for that. When it came to the live bullets, Douglas just didn't have it, right? I mean, it was clear and it was most evident on that play with Patrick Mahomes scrambled down the sideline, right? And just like Douglas had no ability to laterally move at all.
Like I was
game.
really mad, right? Like I wasn't on Twitter that game for the most part, but if I was, I would have said something probably really insulting about Rasul Douglas. But then I remembered, like, oh, he's probably not healthy. Like that's probably just his body physically not being able to do what was being asked of him in that situation. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna put the phone down.
I mean, and in the pregame, when we were asked, like, is it going to be Williams or Klein? We were like, it's going to be Klein. We knew that it was going to be Klein.
And
that's been.
And that's what you had to weigh too, right? Because people like, and I guess maybe Tyrell Dodson could have been the green dot in this game, but Sean McDermott, like those disguise coverages and all those different things they do, it's not a vanilla scheme. It's a very complex scheme the Buffalo Bills run. So it's not exactly like the rookie out of Tulane can put the green dot on. Like Terrell Bernard had been a year and a half in the system. AJ Klein's been with Sean McDermott for a decade. So even though he's giving up so much athletically, Sean McDermott might have felt like he needed him there just to like call the plays.
Yeah. I mean, Terrell Bernard was the single biggest key player missing.
If we have a healthy Bernard, we probably win this game.
I mean, Bernard. I mean, what a godsend that guy had become. And I mean, it's super unlucky that he didn't get to play in this game. He obviously got injured the week prior, and it just sucks, right? The timing sucks, but man, if you start to fast forward a bit and you think about what that defense could look like with Bernard and Milano there, Dorian Williams getting valuable playing time, playing in a playoff game. I love the intensity from Dorian Williams. A lot to learn for him. Obviously, you love the intensity. At times, you got to know, when to dial it up, when to dial it back. But I love his athletic ability, and this is why that comment that you made when you were kind of going through the different roster groups today on social media and posting them, I specifically was very encouraged by what this linebacker room could be here. So you think about where we were a season ago. What's this offensive line going to look like? That question's been answered. What's this linebacker room going to look like with no Tremaine Edmonds? That question has largely been answered. Also, by the way, with Balin Spector getting some playing time as well and looking like he can be a decent third or fourth option.
Dorian Williams is going to be good. The flashes are there. And we also need to remember too, like Terrell Bernard hardly ever played his first year. Right. And everyone got all up in arms and mad. And then Terrell Bernard, maybe should have been an all pro this year, or a pro bowler at least. So Dorian Williams drafted in the same round. He's showing these flashes, this athletic, fast, sideline to sideline guy. Once he can mentally put it together, I think Dorian Williams is going to be really, really good football player. So Spector, who's shown promise, Williams, who's shown promise, behind Bernard and Milano in a 2 linebacker system, that's a deep group. They just got to stay healthy.
They just got to stay healthy. And I do think, just saying again, missing Bernard was absolutely huge in this game. And so, you start to look around like, hey, Douglas, the injury, he was hobbled. No Benford, right? You were missing guys in the secondary. This game came down to you were pretty healthy on the defensive line, and that defensive line ultimately did not deliver in this game. And I guess that's probably what we're going to be talking about a lot again this offseason is the defensive line and what that's going to look like. Because obviously there's not a lot of guys under contract right now as it stands for 2024.
Yeah, so let's just get into that because in my show notes, Bills high-priced and revamped for a third time, and honestly, it might be for a fourth time. Defensive line was dominated. 0 pressures for Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver combined on 38 pass rush attempts. Ed Oliver had 10 1v1s versus Joe Thuney, lost them all. I mean, they were just tossed around like rag dolls in the running game. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit as well. Von Miller played 15 snaps the entire game. I mean, our edge rotation next year is right now Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller, and Kingsley Jonathan. Our interior of the defensive line is just Ed Oliver. Like, it's wiped again. And a team that used a second-round pick on Boogie Basham, who was traded for pennies because he's not that great. A team who used a second-round pick on AJ Epinesa, and it took him 4 years to develop him. A team that has signed defensive tackles who have underwhelmed, minus Daquan Jones, 4 years. I just don't. I don't know. When we talk about this offseason, give me all the wide receivers and just throw whoever you want on the defensive line. I don't care. Just outscore people because I don't trust Brandon Beane and I don't trust Sean McDermott to build a defensive line adequate enough to win us in the football games in the playoffs. So just throw whoever you want out there and outscore people. Like that's my fan intuition at this point. Like, because I'm just like, what is there to say? You've had 4 cracks at it and you failed every time.
Yeah. And realistically, you're probably not going to be able to bring back Epinesa or Leonard Floyd, right? I mean, just realistically, you're probably not bringing back either one.
Jack
right?
Lawson will probably be a part of our defensive line rotation next year, a bigger part of our defensive line rotation. Someone says maybe Cameron Klein. Like, this is where we're at, people.
They did just sign him to Cameron Klein to a futures deal.
Like, when we use a first-round pick on Jared Verse this year, like, cool. Yay. Like, awesome. I agree. We needed it, but we only needed it because, like, you've screwed up so many times. And now we just lost out on Troy Franklin or Brian Thomas because you needed to draft Jared Verse because you couldn't put together a competent defensive line because you couldn't manage a salary cap. So now we're passing on a wide receiver who could provide us those explosives because you need to draft another defensive lineman. Oh, boy. I mean, oh, boy.
Try to get Daquan Jones back if you can, and then start with that starting for Von Miller, Oliver, Jones, and Rousseau, and go from there. I mean, that's going to be your best option, and then figure out what you can do, right? Because if you think about what the Bills could have, I mean, they might be having to look for 2 new starting safeties, right, next year. I think they're in good shape at corner. They're going to have Douglas back. I assume he'll get an extension to kind of help the cap number for next year. Benford, Dane Jackson, we'll see if they bring him back. But, they still have Elam under contract, so it'll likely be Elam, Benford, and Rasul Douglas, and then whatever happens with Trey White. So you start to think about where the Bills are going to need on defense. It's going to be on the D-line, and it's going to be at safety would be my guess. And so those are 2 position areas we'll probably start honing in on as we start to look at free agency in the draft. But those are 2 groups that, at least in this game, the defensive line really was the group that needed to get it done, and they didn't get it done once again. And the same has been said, which seems like every time the Bills lose a playoff game.
Hyde Poyer, they had their last dance last night. Micah Hyde said today, and Jordan Phillips said today as well, that they are considering retirement. And then obviously Jordan Poyer, he could be back next year to hold down the fort for one more year, or he could also find his way out the door as well. And the Buffalo Bills could have 2 new starting safeties next season. But a limp to the finish line for Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, not the way those 2 wanted to go out.
No, not the way they wanted to go out. Obviously, Hyde's a free agent. Poyer technically has 1 year on his deal. The the Bills, if Poyer wants to continue playing, like they probably just need to have him back right next year because otherwise they're going to be in really rough shape at safety. I like where Bills are electric is kind of headed here. We need to draft 2 safeties. I think they need to at least to draft
And
1.
I think too, and again, I don't want to get too far into our postseason stuff, but I think Bills fans at this point need to brace themselves for the reality that the Bills could draft a safety, a defensive tackle, or a defensive end in round 1 and not a wide receiver. Like
Mhm.
you got to brace yourself for that reality as a Bills fan. As much as I will be pounding the table for a wide receiver, and I will be out for blood in that regard. I will not be, unless we go out and add like a Mike Evans or someone in free agency, which I doubt we do with the limited resources that we have. I will be pounding the table for a first round wide receiver. Now, once I settle down a little bit, we can get into some nuanced conversations because maybe it is, Tyler Newbin versus the 7th best wide receiver in the draft board. Maybe it is Cooper DeJean versus the 8th best wide receiver. Like maybe it's just the easy decision. You got to do it like it was with Dalton Kincaid. So I'll settle down at some point, but I'm not settled down right now. And just prepare yourself and be angry. The last thing I wanted to get to on defense is 13 personnel. And I think this is what ticked me off the most about Sean McDermott. And I know Eric Turner and Pro Ant and all of them are going to, Aaron Quinn is definitely going to have their thoughts on this. And I think some of them might have taken my comments today the wrong way, but Andy Reid knew that the Buffalo Bills were not going to take Teron Johnson off the field no matter what. And he absolutely clowned us because he had that information, he had that intel, and he knew the Buffalo Bills were not going to take Teron Johnson off the field. Now, that being said, Teron Johnson is not the reason why our run defense was bad, but Kansas City Chiefs came out and they ran all over us. And out of these 3 tight end sets, they got their offensive linemen matched on defensive backs. They used play action and they got favorable matchups. They got their tight ends on guys like AJ Klein, and it was an absolute bloodbath for the Buffalo Bills. And the Kansas City Chiefs had probably the most efficient offense they've had all season, utilizing this strategy. And it all boils down to, and again, not Teron Johnson's fault. He's literally an all-pro player. The fact that the Kansas City Chiefs knew that no matter how many times they did it, the Buffalo Bills would never take Teron Johnson off the field. There would never be a third linebacker that they would have to worry about. And they exploited it.
Yep. Chiefs 6.1 yards per rush. Pacheco 6.5 yards per rush. They were doing an okay job on him early, but it was clear that there were just chunk plays to be had. I mean, this was my concern. It was like a lot of people's concern, right? Coming in, this was like the Bills did not have to face Isaiah Pacheco the last time these 2 teams played. And it showed this time how much of a matchup difference that makes when he's in there for them. I know Clyde got his 2 carries and had 1 big run, but like Pacheco was the dude, right? And like you said, the Chiefs had their most efficient offense maybe they had all year. Patrick Mahomes, like how many difficult throws did he have to make? Not many. Guys were wide open. It was easy. It just seemed like it was very easy for the Chiefs to move the ball, and they were moving it quickly. And so while if you look at the box score and you see, well, the Bills had 30 more plays than the Chiefs, blah, blah. The Chiefs only had 5 third downs in this game. They only punted once. They had 30 fewer plays, but they had more yards than the Bills in this game. I'm sorry, they had seven less yards than the Bills in this game, excuse me, but on 30 fewer plays. So like they were just super efficient with the ball, and to only have 5 third downs all game. I mean, that's brutal. They were just killing it on a yards per play basis.
All right, let's close it out here with special teams. Let's talk about special teams a little bit. Listen, Tyler Bass, we kind of had this conversation at the top of the show. He makes that field goal, and Patrick Mahomes is a minute 46, 2 timeouts, and all he needs is a field goal to win. Like wide right, like that sucks. Like, I mean, like, but like, again, this missed field goal gets so much more heat than I think it should. I think the bigger issue here is that Tyler Bass has missed 3 field goals this postseason. Harrison Butker has missed 2 field goals all season. It was wide right because why not at this point? You're just torturing us football gods. And it's just been a roller coaster of a season for Tyler Bass. He is not kicked with the Harrison Butkers, the Justin Tuckers, the Chris Boswells of the world. And he was paid like someone who should be kicking with those guys. Ralph Wilson Stadium, Highmark Stadium, whatever you want to call it, is known for their various unfavorable conditions for kickers, yet opposing kickers have had more success in that stadium this season than the guy who kicks there for a living in Tyler Bass. We are financially tied to him. You cannot release him. It's not possible. So he's going to have to turn it around.
Yeah, he is. And I mean, you start to look at sort of the season he had. It was his lowest percentage field goal wise since his rookie season, almost 5% lower than he was last year. I love this super chat, by the way, from Justin. Let me bring this up. The dumbest decision in the game, I felt McDermott, all week chief special teams coach, would have told his unit their punters on one leg, be aware of it. Zero element of surprise. I mean, Sam Martin looked like how do you not put Matt Hawk in that game to punt with what you saw?
You didn't have a choice with your other call-ups, I guess. I don't.
I mean,
that's literally my show notes. I mean, he shanked a punt. He clearly wasn't healthy. Like, who the F thought he was okay to put onto a football field? Like, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And here's the thing with the fake punt. Like, I get it. Like, when I saw it, I'm like, shoot, Damar Hamlin. Like, there's all the memes going around. Like, what did Sean McDermott think this was going to be, like a made-for-TV movie where the guy who almost died gets to just like march to the end zone while everyone claps, right? There was 10 guys on the field, but it turns out the call was played before they realized there was 10 guys on the field. You mentioned there was a lack of element of surprise in the super chat from Justin mentioned that there was zero lack of surprise. I get all that, but you know that meme where there's just like this fat guy with his shirt off and it says like put a shirt on, and then there's like a picture of like Lizzo and it's like, oh, this is art or whatever. If Dan Campbell called that fake punt, like you'd all be gobbling his knob. Like, it's like, I feel like it's Sean McDermott made that call. Sean McDermott was aggressive in the fourth quarter. Sean McDermott made a gutsy play. So we're all reacting to the fact that like didn't work. But if Dan Campbell had done it or someone else had done it, people have been like, what a gambler. Like, we love it. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I have no opinion on the punt, on the fake punt, mostly because it also didn't really play a role in the football game at all because the Buffalo Bills recovered from it.
I mean, yeah, I think my issue more is the personnel decision. Like, if you're gonna do, I mean, I know you want to have some element of surprise because you don't want to like give it away like that it's gonna be a fake necessarily. But I mean, the Bills got absolutely bailed out when they got that fumble through the end zone on the next possession, because that honestly that could have ended the game right there, right? If that play doesn't happen. So if things played out differently and the fake punt and then the Chiefs go down and just punch it in right there, we are talking about that instead of, the missed throw to Diggs or the Tyler Bass missed field goal never would have happened, right? So
this is a great point here from Walter S. He says, Dan Campbell's defense, he doesn't have Josh Allen. No excuse for not giving Allen a chance if you want to get a first. Yeah, I agree. You know what, Walter, you just changed my mind. What a dumb play. Now I do care. So Walter, there you go. See, people can change my mind. I'm amenable to change here. But yeah, Matthew Smiley has been the topic of conversation in the comment section as well, and I get it. I would fire him tomorrow. I wouldn't even think twice about it. But really, like, if you're Sean McDermott, you fire him, and you're just gonna get Ty Dune popping off a tweet like, "There goes Sean McDermott, scapegoating people again." Like, you're gonna get that, right? And it's true, you are, but Matthew Smiley had the best special teams in the league last year and one of the worst in the special teams in the league this year. Like, is it 100% on him? Was it on personnel? Did the Buffalo Bills need to add even more special teams only player? Like,
I don't know, man. It wasn't just one play though this season.
Yeah, it was. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward to the announcement that he's been relieved of his duties because I think it's coming.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you can't, right? Like, you can have one good year, but like, that can't happen, right? That
No.
type of inconsistency. It like the mental lapses of bringing the ball into the end zone on returns when
Mhm.
you're getting tackled at like the 15-yard line or getting holds, the coverage units giving up a opening kickoff touchdown to the New England
Mhm.
Patriots. Like, just, I mean, Deontay Hardy likely, like, the Bills were like 22nd in DVOA special teams until Deontay Hardy made that punt return touchdown and like bumped them up to like 15th just because of that play.
Mhm.
So, like, if Deontay Hardy doesn't make that one punt return touchdown, we're talking about a team that like is really analytically down bad in special
Yeah.
teams. So I've been saying for probably
Mhm.
not even as long as many people, like, I want him gone. We need someone new.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, I know we're talking about special teams. I do want to just quickly agree with your point on they should do a full on robust search for the
Mhm.
offensive coordinator, because last time when they just went with like kind of with what Josh wanted and Ken Dorsey, it didn't work out,
Mhm.
right? So maybe it is Joe Brady, maybe it's not, but like, do a little more diligence this time around.
Yeah. All right, let's close out things here. Let's look ahead to what we have to look forward to here in the off season. And the first thing I want to talk about is obviously next week for us is going to be our roster deconstruction show. So next week we're going to go through the roster position group by position group. We're going to talk about who's under contract, who's not under contract, who the Buffalo Bills should bring back, who they shouldn't bring back, who could be a cap casualty, sort of like looking ahead, who's going into a contract expiring year, who could be an extension candidate. We're going to walk through the whole roster tomorrow. We're going to create a skeleton of what this team looks like this offseason and heading into the future. So that way, for the rest of the offseason, we can go about attacking free agency and talking about free agents we'd like to add and talking about draft picks that we'd like the Buffalo Bills to make, etc. So our roster deconstruction show is coming up next week. It's always one of my favorite shows of the year because both you and I were big fans of just like roster building and philosophies and things of that nature. So as awful as it is that the season is over, the roster deconstruction show is always one of my favorites of the year. And then we'll probably won't do a Senior Bowl recap this show, or excuse me, we probably won't do a Senior Bowl preview show this year because we're going to do our roster deconstruction next week, and then the Senior Bowl happens on that Saturday after that Monday. So we'll probably just have a Senior Bowl recap show this year,
Mhm.
and that's probably when our draft coverage will kick off. But there's a reason why we're doing it, and I think that Cover One did a really good job self-evaluating, going out and getting some guys in John and Dan who are now running the Cover One draft channel. And they're putting out some great stuff. So if you guys haven't had a chance yet, go to the Cover One NFL Draft channel and subscribe. It's a separate channel from this channel, and it's all draft coverage. So check out the Cover One Draft channel. You have the Cover One Draft podcast with John and Daniel. They are putting out great stuff every week. Now that draft season is underway, they'll be putting out video scouting reports. Eric is going to be releasing his first video scouting report on college draft prospects on the Cover One Draft channel this week. So you're going to have scouting reports, you're going to have live shows, you're going to have podcasts, and you're going to have Eric, Anth, John, and Daniel live in Mobile for coverage all week of the Senior Bowl. So Cover One has you covered for the Senior Bowl and the whole pre-draft process. But do us a favor and check out the Cover One Draft channel. We're going to get John, we're going to get Daniel on the show probably over the course of this offseason. We're going to promote the heck out of this channel because those guys put in the work, they grind, they watch the film, they know prospects, the ins and outs of all of these prospects. So we're going to utilize them as a resource this year on our show, and you should be checking out their content as well. So the Cover One Draft channel, check it out. They're going to have you covered this upcoming week for the Senior Bowl, and then we will recap it all on Monday. But Dave, any thoughts as we head into the offseason here?
No, I'm excited about the thought of getting into like the roster deconstruction and free agency and the draft.
Mhm.
Obviously, we'd like to still be talking about games that the Bills are playing, but I mentally need to turn the page because it's just not good for me to dwell on
Mhm.
this any longer. So I'm gonna try to put my energies and efforts into try to continuing to make the
Mhm.
best put my best foot forward on these shows. And then obviously as we get closer to draft season, one of my favorite times of the year. So really looking forward to having John and Dan, having some dedicated looks at that, getting them on our show. Maybe we get to go on their podcast as well. And then just having those guys at the Senior Bowl, building on what they did last year when they were live at the Senior Bowl, Eric and co. It's really great for them. So really happy for those guys and happy for them to be part of this team now.
We got our own Mel Kiper. We got our own Daniel Jeremiah here at the Cover One network. So we have those guys to really fall back on and allow us to do some other maybe big picture stuff as well. And hopefully they'll still let us take part in the draft coverage live over the course of the 3 days of the draft. But those two guys will definitely be a major part of it. All right. Thank you guys so much. We have so much more to offer you this offseason. We really hope you stick with us through the long months of January and February and March as we get into who to re-sign, who to not re-sign, what free agents the Buffalo Bills should target, who we should draft in the draft, what our roster is going to look like, all of those various different things. We don't spend a lot of time doing things like giving out awards or sharing our fondest memories. Like, that's just not our vibe. Other shows do that. And if you enjoy that kind of content, go for it. There are plenty of places and avenues you can get it. We are full steam ahead into the offseason and trying to construct a roster that can beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs in the year 2024. So thank you guys so much. As always, our weekly challenge after the show is over, hit up the comment section on this video with your biggest takeaways from Bills Chiefs, comments you have about the offseason, comments, criticisms you have for us, feedback you have for us, anything you want. If you throw it in the comment section after this show is over, it helps us with the algorithm and helps us get in front of more eyeballs. And we always appreciate that. And smashing that like button does that as well. So thank you guys so much for sticking with us this season on the post-game show, on the pre-game show. We'll be back here every Monday night at 9 p.m. getting you guys ready for NFL free agency, the NFL draft, and everything that is the Buffalo Bills offseason. So Dave, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!